As at August 2023, inflation rate in Nigeria was 25.8%, the highest in 2 decades, while the Naira has also continued to lose ground against major currencies, with a 20% arbitrage opening up between the official and parallel markets, indicating the scope of problems faced by the monetary authorities. Presently, the country's foreign exchange reserves are low, and access to foreign exchange is centrally controlled via the Central Bank of Nigeria. At the same time, there is tremendous demand for forex throughout the economy to pay for imported products and services, including for study abroad. Joining us now on the morning show to analyze the current state of Nigeria's economy, most especially at a time when the current government's new economic policies are perceived not to be people's-friendly, is Tilewa Adebajo, an economist, accomplished investment banker, and corporate finance expert. Good morning, Tilewa. Good to have you on the program.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning. And good morning, Rufai.
Good morning,
well, I read your piece, a piece you wrote recently, Felanomics, which you say you wrote for Felabration, in which you were using Fela's music when he said, overtake, don't overtake, to describe the situation in Nigeria. Similarly, the Financial Times says the economy, the Nigerian economy under President Tinubu has gone awry, and that if government wants to introduce policies, it should do so after really, doing its own work, instead of just introducing policies that it cannot manage. So why do you think our economy has gone so bad that overtake, don't overtake would do? Which also means zero, So let's start with that.
Well, thank you very much for that question, Dr. Abati. I also read your article this morning about Tinubunomics, which you also took perspective on the contemporary issues within the Nigerian economy today. It is rather unfortunate because, what Fela was saying then, I think was quite realistic about, Fela talked about the issue of high inflation, foreign exchange rates, and how it erodes value and the inability to save.
What you call stagflation.
Stagflation. So in that example, he was singing about a civil servant who wanted to save money to buy a fan of 700 naira. And each time the civil servant was saving the money and he wanted to buy the fan, the price had increased. So on this day, he was now determined and he put more effort into his savings. And on his way to buy the fan, the government announced second tier and everything tore to pieces. This was Fela's narrative. So right now, again, we've also seen another second tier, which is the merger of the exchange rates. We've seen inflation, which is looked at 25%, is actually in reality close to 30%. So we're finding the same situation whereby our values have been eroded. So, and of course, you also mentioned the Financial Times article. So because it's rather unfortunate because the elections were won as far back as February. So now we're in October, you would hope that things would work out. But now that they have three very experienced people, you have Mr. Dr. Yemi Cardozo, who is an ex-city banker as the governor of the central bank. You have the former governor of Kebbi State, Atiku Bagudu, who is also an ex-city banker. And you have Mr. Olawale Edun, who is finance minister and minister of coordinating the economy. He's an ex-Chase Manhattan banker, now JP Morgan Chase. So you have three very distinguished and accomplished gentlemen, at the helm of turning this Nigerian economy around. So I think it's clear that there have been too many false starts. So what we can hope now is that the medium-term economic framework is due this month in support of the budget for next year. So the only hope now is that maybe they go back to start all over again, press the reset button after all these false starts, and then with the medium-term economic framework and the budget that will come out next year for 2024, which they will own, they can now make the necessary corrections and give us some sort of hope and some sort of roadmap in terms of policy direction.
I'm glad you used the word hope, because that's the mantra of this administration, renewed hope. So what they've said to Nigerians is that they're going to restore and renew hope. So let's talk about how the journey to this renewal of hope, following what you've described as false starts, examining some of the policies or false starts in detail. One of such, I don't know if you would consider the announcement of the removal of fuel subsidy a false start. And so how can we begin to remedy the situation? Mr. Mele Kyari had earlier talked about the fact that he mentioned that subsidy hadn't returned, and the Penkasan has said that it's not adding up. Something is not adding up. That's number one. Number two, unification of the exchange rate. At 1,000 naira to $1 currently, it's mind-boggling. That's another one. How do we remedy the situation currently?
Thank you very much for those questions. Yes, those are indeed the false starts that we had. And I think, the fuel subsidy was supposed to be something that when we removed it, will save us 10 to 50, we'll get net savings of $10 to $15 billion a year, which we can now use to, invest in other parts of the economy, and we're supposed to see some sort of benefits. But unfortunately, when you do that, you also understand that, you're looking at a market price movement. And I think, as Dr. Abati said in his article today, the landed cost for fuel is now about 750 naira. So in that case, you have to now raise those prices of fuel according to the movement of the oil prices. Oil prices are nearing $100 a barrel. Diesel is already selling. 1,000 liters of diesel is now 1 million naira. So that is market driven. So the political will to shift the PMS prices are not quite there. So there you see the subsidy. So we're now back to where we started from.
Are you saying that subsidy is back?
Of course it is back. I mean, you know that. I mean, you don't have to.
That's what Mr. Kyari said.
No, please, you see, Mr. Kyari is Mr. Kyari. I get information from the world markets. You go to Platts prices and you put 2 and 2 together. As oil prices go up, so does the subsidies will erode. And so you have to increase that. So, but the other side, which we never take into consideration, is that when the oil prices drop, also the fuel prices will also drop. So we need to be able to understand the dynamics that is going to go up and down. And that's what we not need to deal with. So I don't want to personalize it by talking about what, Mr. Kyari said. My own training is that I look at facts and figures and I present them, and I make, you make deductions from that. And it's something that you can make deductions from. These are global prices, and the information is available globally. On your next stop, which you talked about the foreign exchange situation, it's rather unfortunate that we looked at a mechanism for closure of the window. But unfortunately, the issues within the central bank balance sheet, which was now later exposed, has meant that couldn't work, because you saw the challenges with the reserves. You saw the JP Morgan report that our net reserves are probably close to about 4 billion. So that is where the challenge is, because you don't have enough of the dollars to be able to manage that system. So that is why that has not worked, and you can now begin to see more of the arbitrage. And of course, you have close to between an $8 to $10 billion backlog that you haven't cleared. And then you also have a lot of forward contracts which you've signed with the banks, because the banks have close to $21 billion in swaps with the central bank. Now, this is an in-house arrangement between the banks and the central bank, whereby banks might borrow in dollars and the central bank will warehouse their dollars and give them naira. So, but these are things that you need to rearrange, you need to restructure. So all these issues have caused this problem. So, but these are issues that can be addressed by restructuring the balance sheet of the central bank.
Okay. So, concerning prices, automatically, if we're not subsidizing, prices also go up for some weird reason. I was watching Zambian television yesterday, and they were just reviewing prices of petroleum, really, across the country in Zambia. So it's a general heat around the world. Let's talk about debt. Since this administration came in, the debt numbers increased. You were here to advocate against securitization of ways and means.
Yes.
Finally, they went ahead, they securitized, they changed the law. They said, okay, there's a 15% threshold now for 5% and all of that. the debt conundrum, it's topped 87 trillion as we speak today.
Yes.
How can we get a hang of this debt?
Well, the debt problem, I think, is quite significant. And
let me add for good measure.
yes.
Government is still spending a lot of money that is not put in supplementary budget. We don't know where they're spending from. We don't know what's going on. But they're getting the money out. They're still putting a lot of government positions out, giving people positions. And the Senate has told them that, given supplementary budget, you can't just be spending money like this. And now, on top of that, they want to add 75 billion for mama lodgers around the country, or market women.
Fantastic. Let me make a point of correction in the sense that the Ways and Means problem has not been resolved.
Really?
No, it hasn't been resolved. Yes. So
I thought
there's no law in place that says that the government can securitize Ways and Means financing. And there's no president in Nigeria, according to Nigerian law, that can send a request to the Nigerian Senate to allow them to securitize Ways and Means. The only way it can be done is to amend the Section 38 of the CBN Act, and that has not been done. So because you sent a request to the Senate and the Senate gave some sort of approval, that's not the case. The Senate passed a resolution before it left that they would like to see the ceiling of the 5% increase to 15%. Even if you do that, the Ways and Means financing based upon the revenues cannot be more than 3 trillion. So the Ways and Means financing has moved from 23.7 trillion on their balance sheet, which you will see from the annual reports of the central bank in December last year, currently standing at 30 trillion. So there's been close to 7 trillion increase in Ways and Means financing this year alone. And for the last 3 months, I think Ways and Means financing has increased by about 4 trillion.
So that means we're still printing?
Well, yes.
The CBN is printing money as we speak?
Well, yes, it's still happening, but I don't know what the full impact of it is because we haven't seen the balance sheet. But what is happening is that they're financing the Ways and Means. They've been financing some of the Ways and Means from CRR, from the open market operations, and from some of the government deposits. So what is happening now is that it is the balance of that they are printing. So we don't know the extent of that right now. So with the new central bank governor in place, they will probably reconcile some accounts because the last accounts from the central bank that they have released on their website is for March. So I haven't seen anything since March. So Ways and Means has not been resolved. So the Senate cannot just come and say we've approved it. No, it doesn't work that way. And if the Debt Management Office tries to securitize the Ways and Means, then they're going to be violating the CBN Act and they're going to be violating
But they've done that already. That's what they said. They said they've even spread it over 40 years and they have interest and all of that, people can buy it if they want as bonds.
They cannot do that. I've told you that. You can say what you want to say, but you cannot do what is illegal. The only way you do it is to change the Central Bank Act. So securitization does not just work. So we have a problem with the debt burden of Nigeria. And the problem you're talking about is not even about the current debt that you can reconcile at the moment. Okay, so we know that the debt profile, we know Ways and Means is about 30 trillion right now. There's another 100 billion that they have on the DMO website, $100 billion. So maybe about 150 billion. But the biggest challenge now on the debt profile of Nigeria is the forward contracts and the swaps that we've been engaging in. There is a massive need for us to reconcile it and know the true position of that because that is another debt burden that we have because that means that future revenues have been compromised.
So this swaps...
yes, so future revenues have been compromised. So that's another borrowing.
Does it involve this AfrExim thing we're trying to do?
The AfrExim is part of it. So we don't know how many. So it's important that the Minister of Budget...
And there's an interest rate for that?
Of course. I mean, there's an implicit cost with that because you're going to have to deliver at a particular point in time. So the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Budget and Planning need to reconcile the value of the swaps and forward contracts so that we know that out of the revenue we're going to earn next year, which one of them has been pledged.
Okay, Chidi, let me take you back to another piece you wrote. This was in September, the change of guards at the CBN.
That's right.
This morning, you've talked about Cardoso, you've talked about Edun, you've talked about Baguto.
Yes.
One of the things you said in that piece is that turning the Nigerian economy around is not as difficult as it seems once you do the right things. So what are those right things that you recommend to Tinubu's economic team so that we don't have Financial Times say, look, you just take these policy decisions without thinking through? This is where we are now with all the indicators. What are those right things that you think should be done, beginning with CBN balance sheet?
Yeah. First of all, I think we need to restructure the central bank balance sheet, as we've talked about. The ways and means is 30 trillion. It's 20% per annum. So basically on 30 trillion, the CBN is making revenues of close to 6 trillion naira a year on it. So it's a very profitable venture for the central bank. So, but it's illegal. So we need to reduce the ways and means to the right limit, or we need to amend Section 38 to allow whatever it is they're carrying on their balance sheet. So those are the implications of what the former governor of the central bank has done. So once you restore the ways and means to the right limits, then you need to look at the swaps you have with the banks also. Make sure they're in order, restructure them so that it can help with the foreign exchange. Then all those loans you have from intervention loans in Israel and all, if you look at the CBN balance sheet, it's a big loss on it. So you need to reconcile those loans, take them out and move them out to the development banks. Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, Bank of Development Bank of Nigeria. Those three banks have the capacity not only to originate loans, but also to manage and monitor loans. So get those loans off those balance sheets and let CBN now focus on monetary policy. We need to put in place a new MPC. We need to put a new governing board of the central bank in place with people who know what they're doing. So that's number one on the CBN. Then number two, what are the economic policies? We have stagflation. We need to reduce inflation. At the point in time in Nigeria, 2013, 2014, Nigeria's economy grew about 9%. Inflation was just 11%. So with 11% inflation, we can grow this economy at close to 8 to 10%, which is what we need to do. So, and the fiscal authorities, like I've said, between the Minister of Budget and Planning and the Finance Minister, they need to get the fiscal house in order. As Rufai said earlier, the debt profile has become unsustainable. 95% of revenues are going towards debt service. So if we restructure the economy and we do the right things and we stick to it for it's not a sprint. So anybody who's telling you that it's a marathon. So understand that we're preparing for a marathon. So you need 18 months of consistency of monetary policy, fiscal policy, and trade policy, and then we can begin to see the results.
Well, on that note, we would like to thank you very much, Tilewa Adebajo, for joining us this morning and trying to unravel this conundrum that the Nigerian economy has become.